When people think about building apps, they usually think about the UI, the logic, the backend, the user experience, and things like that. But there's still a lot more to be done if you want to build a truly amazing apps. A lot of things that go under the surface that make up a truly complex production ready app. And so in today's video, we are going to be talking about how to make a truly amazing apps using backend flows. And these backend flows will truly take your apps to the next level. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I talk about in these videos can be viewed and or cloned from my Patreon page. And if you're still not a member of our amazing Patreon community, you can learn more via the first link in the description below the video. Now, in order to explain to you guys this concept a lot better, here I have a very popular iceberg knowledge diagram, right? So we have this iceberg here, and you typically see just a part of it, right? So if you see an iceberg above the sea surface, you typically see a part of it. You don't see anything below, right? And that is exactly the same situation when it comes to building apps, okay? Because when we think about building apps, right, a lot of people, they naturally think about the stuff that the user sees, right? The UI, the widgets, the user interactions, the logic, the backend, right? You know, all of these things that you immediately think about when it comes to building apps. But there's so much more that goes into building truly amazing, capable, and life-changing apps that users really connect with, right? And this is the second half, the bottom half, if you will, of this iceberg, right? This is a real apps that you probably are using right now, or will be using very shortly. I know I'm using apps like this all the time. They have backend flows, they have gamification, they have notifications, they have alerts. They have cool stuff that provides a truly amazing user experience. Now, if you're thinking that this is very hard to do, or it's very complex, or a combination of both, you're in for a treat, because this is relatively straightforward to do. And I'm going to be showing you some of the amazing things that you can do to make your apps a lot more appealing to your end users, right? And that way they can tell other users, right? So you have this kind of natural marketing, right? Word of mouth kind of phenomena happening. And that's going to get more users to your apps. And in order to explain to you some of the amazing flows, some amazing things that you can implement in your apps, we're going to be using an amazing tool called BuildShip. And this is a great tool for creating all kinds of amazing backend flows. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you a ton of amazing flows that have real value for your users, as you're going to be seeing in just a second. And I'm also going to be showing to you how you're going to be actually implementing these flows using a Supabase backend. Okay, now the first flows that I want to talk about, and these are going to be relatively simple flows. Okay, and these flows are something that I call low-hanging fruit. Okay, they're easy to implement and they provide a lot of value. Okay, and these are the flows that I call user flows. Okay, so the first three flows are going to be focusing on user onboarding, user communication, things like that. And then later, I'm going to be showing you more complex and more interesting flows that I'm 100% sure you'd want to implement in your apps. And so the first flow that I want to talk about is this welcome user email, okay? And when I talk about flows, I always focus on their marketing potential, right? I always focus on the value, right? On the value to the users. I don't think about, oh, it's hard to create this flow, or it's simple to create this flow. I don't think about that. I think about the value, okay? And, sending a user a welcome email is value. Okay, this is value. And this is a very simple flow. All we have here is two nodes, right? In BuildShip, we create something called workflows. And inside the workflows, we create nodes. And basically, an entire workflow, which essentially consists of more than one nodes typically, right? Because the first node is a trigger node, right? So this is a node that triggers the entire workflow, right? So you need at least two nodes for a functional workflow, right? So in this example, we have this trigger node, and this is a Supabase trigger, and it gets triggered when a new user is created. Okay, so we have this table schema auth, table name users, and if I go in here, I have this public schema. If I go to this auth, I have this user schema, and a new record is created here whenever a new user signs up and an account is created. Okay, and that's going to trigger this workflow. And so all we're doing is sending an email. Okay, so we have this James. This is my sender, right? You're obviously going to change this. And here is going to be the record email. This is this email right here. Okay, so whenever this record is created, we capture the email and we can send a user an email message. Okay, very, very simple flow, but a very, it's full of value, right? It's a low-hanging fruit. It's just two nodes and you're communicating with the user. Hey, thank you so much for signing up to my app, to my product. Here's a blog article that you can read more about it. Here's something that you can learn, right? Very, very cool workflow. And this is something that you should be implementing in all kinds of situations because it's super, super helpful. Okay. The second workflow that I want to talk about is a birthday anniversary reminder. Okay. So this is another one. It's slightly more complex. It's slightly more involved, but still it provides value. If it's my birthday, I like when people wish me a happy birthday. I like when people congratulate me. I even like it from, people I don't know, because it makes me feel special, right? Now, the way that we do this one is we have a schedule, right? So instead of having a Supabase trigger, because we're not going to be triggering this workflow via a record, it needs to be triggered on a time basis, okay? So here we set up a schedule cron, and we have this schedule. So this is going to get triggered every single day at 12 o'clock, 12:00. So basically at midnight, it's going to get triggered. And what we want to do is we want to get a row from the user. We want to, get user information. So in this example, let me go back to our public schema here. I have this a user extension, so this should be a user extension. And I have another table, and this is something that I recommend all of you to do when you are building apps and you have user authentication, right? You want to create another table that gets linked to the original table because you cannot extend the original table, okay? And so I have the second table and I'm storing a bunch of other data, right? So I have this user ID linking to the original table, but I'm also storing the birthday, I'm storing last login, which you'll see is going to be important for one of the following workflows. And all I'm doing here is I'm getting the row, right? I have a filter, and basically I'm filtering for birthdays on that specific date, right? And these workflows are for illustration purposes only, right? I'm just showing you how this is going to be done. We have a filter, and we are trying to find users who have a birthday on this specific date, okay? And once we get a row, if we get a row, we have a loop because we can get multiple users, right? If you have a lot of users, you're not going to be getting just one user. You may have multiple users with the same birthday on that specific date. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send them an email message, okay? So we have a cron job that checks every day. We don't need to check, every minute or every hour. Every day is fine, right? And then we basically check to see if there's a birthday on this. So for instance, we have this one user here. Their birthday is September 16 of 99. So we need to see if today is 9/16 and see if those users exist. So we're basically looking for users on this date, and then we're looping and sending them a message, and you can obviously customize it. Okay, so another value-packed workflow that's very easy to do, but adds a lot of value. I know I get emails from all kinds of websites, all kinds of apps, even websites that I haven't used in a while, sometimes years, sometimes more. And it's kind of cool. It makes me feel a little special, right? The next user-based workflow that I want to talk about is an inactive user notification, okay? And the purpose of this workflow is to send an email to users or emails to users that have not logged in some time. Now here, I also have a time-based trigger, and the time that you want this trigger to trigger is up to you. But, in this case, we're also checking every day and seeing if we find a user that hasn't logged in 30 days, okay? And so again, we're checking this table here, and this is this A underscore users underscore extension, and we have a filter. And so in this filter, I am taking today, which is today, I'm taking 30 days ago, and I'm checking to see if there's a last login that's less than 30 days ago, right? So essentially, we're not concerned with users that have logged in within that 30-day window, right? So if today is like, let's say, September 1st, 30 days ago is August 1st. We only care about users that haven't logged in before August 1st, so outside the 30-day window, right? So I have some logic here that I created on the fly just to show you how it's done. We're looking at this last login here, right? We are tracking when the user last logged in, right? And you can do that in Flutterflow. Every time they log in, you can just fire off a query, right? But actually, the checking cannot be done in Flutterflow. And in fact, none of these workflows can be done in Flutterflow or whichever, front-end UI builder, app builder tool that you're using. That's what makes them so powerful and so special. And so here we have a condition. I'm basically checking if we have any records. Okay, if we have any records, this is going to be an array here, right? We get an array of records. And then what we're doing is we're looping through the records if we have any records, and then we send them off an email, right? We get this email from this user here, and we just fire off an email. Okay, we say, hey, come back. It seems that you haven't logged in a while. And you can say whatever you want in the email, like we have all of these features, or if there's something that we can do, or etc. etc. It's a way to get users to come back to your app, right, and start using your app, right? And remember, the more they use your app, the more money you're gonna make, right? Because maybe they canceled an account. You can say, hey, I noticed you canceled. You haven't used our app. Here's a discount. Here's 3 months off, or 30% off for 6 months, etc., etc., right? Another fairly simple workflow, but gets your customers back to your app, right? Very, very powerful, okay? Let's keep going, okay? The next two workflows that I want to talk about are workflows that have to do with chat, okay? So if we go over here, we have these two tables. We have this one chats, and this is a list of chats. Okay, so if you're chatting with someone, if your app supports chatting functionality, you're typically going to have chats. And then inside, for every one of those chats, you're going to have various messages. So I have these two tables, right? Chats and chat messages. So for chats, we have just the users that are part of the chat. So we can easily, quickly look up the chats that belong to a particular user. And for chat messages, we have this chat ID, we have the sender, we have the message, we also have scheduling as well that I'm going to be covering. And so in this workflow, all we're doing is we have a trigger that gets triggered every day, and it checks if there's some messages that are older than X amount of time, and it archives them, okay? Not messages, chats, okay? So this is a great feature if you want to build like a messaging app, or you have messaging functionality as part of an app that you're doing, right? You can have automatic chat archiving, right? Which is an amazing feature. And so what we are doing here is we have this table. This is B1 chat messages, B2 chat messages, and we basically look it up, and we have a filter here today, 30 days ago, and we're looking for messages created at, beyond the 30 days, so less than that date, right? So if today is September 1st, 30 days ago is August 1st, we want messages that were created, updated, right? In this case, it's going to be updated before that, right? So that's what we're doing. We're checking. We're seeing if we have chats like that, and we get each of the chats, and we basically archive it, right? So we have this table name, and this needs to match this chats here, right? This is going to be B1 chats, and we're doing a filter, right? We're trying to get the messages, and you can filter them using the chat ID that you got here, right? Because in each record, you're going to get a chat ID. So you can simply, you can do something like this. In fact, you can do, chat ID equals to, and then let's say you're getting an item here. So I can say item, and then I can say ID, right? Because we're doing this. This is ID, and that's it, right? Chat ID equals to ID. Okay, and that's all we need to do. That's our filter. The only thing we need to do is we need to do this and we need to do this. Okay, and now we have a filter ready, right? We're basically filtering. We're looking up those messages because we need to update those records, right? So we have the filter, and then for the data, I'm just setting archive true. And then what's going to happen is on chats, we're going to have a field called archive. And this is going to be a Boolean here, right? And by default, it's false, right? Because it's an active chat. So if we do that, we have a field here, and that's going to go ahead, and this is actually, should be B1 chats, and it's going to update it and set this to true, right? And in your app, you can do the appropriate logic, right? Maybe you're only going to be showing the active messages where archive is false, and then another screen for archive messages. It's up to you how you want to do it, but that is the workflow here, right? So a great feature, not hard to implement, but something you may want to do in your apps. Okay, now the next feature is actually very, very interesting, and this is scheduling messages. Okay, again, this is not something that you can do in your apps, right? It's not like an or, you can do it here, you can do it in your app. No, you can't do it in your app because it needs to be in the backend, right? Your app responds to user input. If the users are not interacting with your app is not going to do anything, right? Whereas this one is firing, in this case, every 5 minutes. Okay, so the way this works here is that you can schedule messages, right? So we have a trigger. It gets triggered, it fires every 5 minutes, right? So this is a cron kind of config. The first one is the minutes, then you have hours, then you have days, days of the week, etc., etc. And so here, when you do it divided by 5, it means it gets fired every 5 minutes. Okay, well, what I mean is this one, kind of this forward slash. If you had this, for instance, this would get triggered every minute. Okay, but if you do divided by 5, it's gonna get triggered every 5 minutes. Okay. So this is going to get triggered every 5 minutes. And the idea is you can schedule messages at like 5-minute intervals. So you can send a message at 12:30, 12:35, 12:40, at 5-minute chunks, right? And so here what we have is we're looking for chat messages, right? So if I go into B chat messages, and this should be B2 chat messages, we have this scheduled at, right? So if this has a field, that message is not active yet. It's not something that the user sees until it gets to the time at which it was scheduled. Okay, so here we have a filter, and here what I'm doing is I have the current time, I have 5 minutes ago, and I'm essentially looking for messages that should have been fired, right? Within a certain interval, right? And so here I have last login. This is not correct, obviously. This should be scheduled at. Okay, and so what I'm doing is I'm checking if a particular message is within a particular interval that it should have been fired. Okay, because this trigger is firing every 5 minutes, but it might not fire at exactly what that scheduled time is. So we're trying to see, for instance, if we have a message at 12:30 and this gets triggered like at 12:33 or something, right? Not 12:30, maybe 12:33, 12:34. We are looking for messages within that 5-minute interval, right? We're not looking for previous messages. We're just looking at messages within that 5-minute interval that, this trigger did not trigger because it fired a little bit later, right? So that's the idea, okay? And so I'm getting those messages. And then what I'm doing is I'm updating that messages, right? I'm updating the exact message that I got, and I'm setting data active is true. And this is this active flag, right? So typically every normal message is going to be active true, except this scheduled at is going to be false. Okay, that's just one way of doing it. And when this is set to active true, the user sees the message, because in our app we have filtering where, you know, we're just showing all the active messages. That's it. And so as soon as this trigger gets fired off, this gets updated, they see the message. So that is another flow for chats. Very, very easy, just for, or if you don't count this initial node here, this trigger node, just 3 nodes, and you have awesome functionality that provides a lot of value. Just have another feature in your app, right? Okay, let's continue. Okay, next two flows that I want to show you have to do with a store. So if you have an e-com app, if you're doing you have a shopping cart feature in your app, you're going to be interested in this. So the first one notifies the user if there's a price drop in their shopping cart. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you the shopping cart. So I have the shopping cart table. Okay, so we have this ID, shopping cart ID. We have created that. We have the user ID here, who it belongs to. We have the product. This is the product ID, and we have the product name here, just to make it simple, so we don't have to look up the product ID. You don't have to have this. You can look it up elsewhere. We have the product price. This is the original price when they added the product. We have the cart price, right? This right here is the product price. The cart price, on the other hand, is when they added the product, right? So if this price drops, then there's a difference between the product price and the cart price. And we have the cart quantity, right? Which is how you're going to be implementing a shopping cart. And so what we have here is we have this table here. And now we have a trigger, right? So if there is a trigger, right? If we update this shopping cart, right? If in our app we have a flow where, if we need to update, if the price changes, we update this automatically, right? We're listening for this. And here we have a condition. And so what we're checking is old record price. And in fact, this should be product price, right? It's not going to be price. So I'm going to say product price and new record product price. So basically it changed. This was updated and the product price was updated. Okay, cart price is the same, but product price was updated, right? In that case, it goes here because this is then true. And now we send the user a message. Okay, hey, cart price changed, good news, etc., etc. Right? This is another nice thing, right? Maybe you want to send it when the product was lowered. Maybe you want to send in both conditions. Product was higher, lower. Maybe if it's lower, they should purchase now. Maybe if it's higher, they should still purchase now because maybe the price is rising. So they might, there might be another price increase. Okay, so another very nice feature, amazing feature. That's just a couple of nodes, right? Really, really nice. Okay, let's keep going. The next one is also part of e-com category, and it has to do with email reminders of abandoned carts. Okay, this is another very, very powerful feature. Okay, so I'm shopping, I have this app, I'm shopping, I'm adding things to my cart, and then instead of checking out, somebody calls me, my mom calls me, my friend calls me, and I lose track, I have to do something and I forget to purchase, okay? And so if, let's say 24 hours goes by or 48 hours goes by, I still didn't purchase, we have the shopping cart that's more than 48 hours long, we may want to contact the user. We may want to send them an email or do a notification, okay? This is exactly what we're doing, right? So this is C shopping cart, right? We're basically looking at the shopping carts and we have a filter here, right? We get the current date, we get 2 days ago. I'm using 48 hours, right? We get the date and then we're basically looking at our shopping carts that were created, more than 2 days ago, right? So today is September 15. I'm looking at shopping carts that were created before September 13 because 48 hours back, right? From September 15 is September 13, right? I'm looking at shopping carts that are older than that, right? If it's within that 48-hour window, it's okay. But if it's older, older beyond that 48-hour window, back in time, if you will, then I want to find those shopping carts and I want to send the user an email. And for this example, to send them an email, because we're querying this table, you need to create a view, right? Because you're not going to be storing all this information. You're going to be checking this card here for sure, but you're going to be getting a user ID. So you need to create a view, and then you can simply look up the user's information in this second view, as you're going to see a little bit later when I show you these other flows, right? That is how I would do it, right? Because I wouldn't be storing all this information in the shopping cart, because we have the user ID, and so you can query their user's extension, or you can query the other table, the auth users, right? That read-only table, right? Because we have this user ID here. Okay, so that's how you do it. Send them an email, and hopefully send them a link as well to your shopping cart, and hopefully they'll come back and check out and purchase the products. Okay, so that's e-com. Next, let's talk about gamification. Okay, what is gamification? Gamification is basically when you incentivize the user to do something in your app, to basically use your app, and when they do stuff, you give them some kind of a reward, right? So a really good example is Google Maps. Okay, so I don't know, who uses Google Maps out there, but if you leave reviews for different places, restaurants, parks, venues, etc., after a while, Google tells you, hey, you've left a ton of reviews. You are at this level. You're like this user level 2, level 3, whatever. Okay, this has happened to me after leaving reviews. So that is one example. And to be honest with you, it's kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool. Like, I know what Google is doing. I know that is gamification, but it's still very powerful, right? Because it rewards me for doing something, right? Because otherwise I'm leaving reviews on Google, it seems like Google doesn't care, right? Or Google Maps doesn't care as an app. But if I see Google come back to me and say, hey, you've left this review, you've left a lot of reviews, your reviews have been seen by X amount of people, you're doing great, that's gonna push me to leave more and more reviews and kind of build up that reputation, get more and more rewards. Okay, so back to this, I want to show you two workflows, right? So many reviews upgrade status, right? So something very similar, right? So if we go to this table here, I have this D reviews, and I have these reviews here, right? So this user left this review, this user, and it's all the same user left these reviews. And so what I'm doing here is I'm basically checking to see if a particular user has left X amount of reviews. And for that, I'm using a view, right? We're not using this table because in this table, we don't have a count, right? I have a view to tell me the count. And this is something that I just talked about in the previous example. This is the approach you want to take, okay? So we are querying this table called user reviews counts, right? So if I go to this table, I can come over here and I can see that it's telling me this user and it has the count, right? And you just saw it, right? So if I go back, I have this user, same user, 3 reviews, right? So it's basically, summing up the reviews on a user basis, okay? So here what I'm doing is I'm looking up all the users and seeing if a user has 100 reviews, because I have a trigger on the original table, right? On this D reviews, I have a trigger. So I'm basically listening for every new review, and that's fine, right? Supabase is very high performant. And then I'm basically checking if the review count is 100. So that will give me all the users, and this could be multiple users, right? Not just me, because you might have, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, etc., of users using your app. So I'm trying to get the users that have left 100, that just left 100 reviews, okay? And then I have a loop. And so when it finds the user, it wants to do something. So in this case, we have this D reviews, which is this table here, but that's not the table that you want to, work with, right? In this example, you want to work with this users extension table, right? So I'm going to change this to users extension because that is kind of the general user table. And I want to find this user ID that I've gotten here. Remember, I am querying this user review counts, right? So I have this user ID, so I can find, that user in this table. And I want to update something, right? I want to set user level to pro. And so if I go to this table here, I don't have this field. So typically you may want to have a field, user level, and you should have it as text right here. And I'm going to say here. And so by default, when we create this table, It could be null, it could be just beginner, etc., etc. And then it updates it. Okay, it's 100. It's gonna update it once. Okay, and you can also have another check. Now, obviously, this may update it multiple times, right? Because it's equals to 100. So if I'm standing at 100, and every time it's triggering, it may keep updating it, right? Which is not the best thing from a performance standpoint. So what you may want to do is you may also want to check if we have set this user level. Okay, that's going to do it, right? Because otherwise, you know, once I get to 100 reviews, and the first time it does it, that's okay, right? That's the correct approach. But then it's going to keep doing it, right? So you may want to have an if condition, check if I have it set to that, and do it, right? And update it. Okay, that's another thing that you can do. Okay, let's go ahead and check another gamification, right? So in this gamification, we're going to be doing things that are a little more interesting, right? This is where we are going to be tracking streaks or habits, right? So you know what a streak is, right? It's when I do things consecutively, right? So maybe I'm building a habits app and I have a habit where I'm trying to build a habit where I run every day, or I write in my journal every day, or I study every day for 30 minutes or an hour, or whatever the habit is. Well, now you can do it with this workflow. Now, in this workflow, what we're doing is we are tracking if people are leaving reviews consecutively, right? So instead of tracking whether someone has left 100 reviews or 1,000 reviews, now we care about consecutively, right? So in a sequence, okay? So we have this table here. This is this Z reviews. And as you can see, this user has left three reviews here. Okay, so this one here. But in terms of consecutiveness, it's basically 2, right? Because if I leave it here, that's 1. And then leave it again, that's 2, right? So it's not 3, it's 2, right? Because 2 days is 1, right? You know, I did it 1 time consecutively. But if we have 3, it's going to be 2. So it's essentially the number of days that's done in a row minus 1. Okay, and that's exactly what we're going to be getting here, right? So I went ahead and created another view called user review streaks. So if we go over here, this tells us if and how much is the streak. Okay, so in this case, user ID has 2. Okay, so in a row. If I go in here, if I go to D reviews and I create another review, so let's say for September 12th, I go back in time, I'm going to add a row, okay, and I say, this is the same user, 1F, and I say, wow, great experience, okay? And let's say in this case, this is September 12th. I'm going back in time, I hit save, and now we have the same user, 1, 2, 3. And if I go in here, streaks, it's going to be 3 now, okay? So this view that I have created is tracking the streaks this time, okay? And don't worry, I'll make all of these views, everything that I have done here available to my amazing Patreon subscribers so that you can model this exact database, this exact flow here, okay? And so this is exactly what's happening here, right? So I'm querying this and I'm setting streak count to 30. So I want something that's done 30 in a row, right? Because maybe the challenge is to leave 30 reviews in a row. And that is exactly what will happen. So we are basically querying for all the users that have, you know, streak count of 30. This is streak count of 3. That's not enough. It's great, but it's not enough. And so here, once we get that user, what we want to do is we want to update the row. Now I have reviews here. This should obviously be a user's extension because that's the main user table, this table here. I want to filter the user and I want to set user level to king, right? So before we had pro, because, you know, the user has left 100 reviews, but if they do it 30 days in a row, we're going to upgrade the status. We're going to say pro, king, excuse me. We're going to say king, right? Or master, or whatever you want to call it, right? Again, really, really simple, but we have powerful functionality thanks to this, you know, this view here that does all the magic and this amazing flow here. Okay, really, really cool. Okay. And last but not least, I want to show you another amazing flow that's going to be useful to you when you're building social media apps. And that is to detect posts that your friends make that go viral. Okay? That way you can show them on your screen. You can be notified of those posts, right? So, maybe you don't want to get notified. This is kind of how social media apps work, right? They may not notify you of all the posts, right? Because let's say you have a lot of friends, right? They can't fit those posts. What they typically want to do is they want to show you the posts that you're going to be reading and taking action and looking at the commercials and the ads, etc., etc. And typically these are going to be popular posts. Okay. And so what's happening here is we have a bunch of tables here. Okay. This is the most complex flow here. But once again, it's only like three nodes if you don't count this one, right? So we have this E post, right? So E stands for the fifth one, right? Because we just have this A, B1, B2, C, D. So E post, which is where a user leaves a post. So we have this user ID, they leave a post, okay? But we also have other tables here. So we have E comments, right? Where a user leaves a comment. We have E friends, where a user might have a friend, right? This is a many-to-many relationship, okay? And if you're not sure what exactly is a many-to-many relationship and how it all works together, check out my training, Mastering Supabase. It's going to make it super clear. You can learn more about it in the description below the video. But in short, you essentially add rows that have friends. So this is me. This is a friend. If I have more friends, it's going to be another row here with another friend. If it's somebody else, they're going to have a user ID with their friend, etc., etc. Okay. And so, and then we have shares, right? So this is, we have the post ID and the user ID who shared it. Okay. And so having all of these tables, we can create views that give us very, very useful information. So in this case, we are checking this view here, friends post last 24 hours with stats. So here I have this view. If we go over here, we have this post ID and the like count, right? And so in this view, we are going to be sorting the posts that my friends make by the likes. Okay, so in this case, this is my post owner ID. This is the friend ID, right? So this is the person who made the post, and this is the friend, right? So if I am the person that's trying to do the query, I want to query it by the friend ID, right? Because this is the friend over here, right? And so if you take a look in the posts, you can see that I'm this user ID that made the post, but my post wasn't liked. It has no likes, right? Because if I go into e-likes, you can see that this is the post and this is the person that liked it. This is the post and this is the person that liked it. So if we go here, you can see that this is the person who wrote the post and this is the friend that liked it, right? And it has 1 like, 0 comments, 0 shares here, okay? And so in this example, this is kind of what I'm looking at. This is what I want to see, right? So let's say I go into authentication and I create another user, okay? Let's say this is tim@tim.com and we have the password here. I created the user and now I go back to the table editor and I go into likes, and let's say I like this post as well, a different user, okay? I come in here and I like this post, okay? I select post 1, and now Tim likes it, right? So let's go ahead and pick Tim. Next, I want to go ahead and make this person my friend. I go over here and let's say I select myself, 1F, and I select this new person. This is going to be 16, hit save. And now I'm friends with 2 people. And let's say that person posts something, right? So if I go over here and I create a post from this person, right? I insert a row. This is this Tim. Tim writes a message, right? Okay. I hit save. And let's say a bunch of people like that message, right? So I'm going to insert a row. I'm going to select Tim's message, right? This is Tim's message right here. And then a bunch of people like it. So let's say these 2 people liked it, not the same person, not Tim liking it. So I say, this person liked it, and then I add another row. I select Tim's message, and now this one. And so ideally, if there's, posts from my friends that get a lot of likes, I want to have those posts on my timeline. Or I want to get notified, hey, there's a post that's going viral, right? Sometimes you see that a notification on Facebook or YouTube or somewhere, right? I want to get notified, right? And so this is the way to do it. And so here, what I want to do is I want to filter by specific people, right? So in this case, I'm filtering by friend ID here, and I'm getting these viral posts, right? And also maybe I want to filter if likes is, greater than 100, right? So here it's not a lot of likes, 2 and 1, but maybe I want to filter by comments, by shares. And once I get those posts, I want to maybe create a row in the timeline or get a notification or do something, right? Now, this gets fired every time a new post is created, but we can also create a trigger every time a new like is created or a new share is created or a new comment is created, right? In fact, it will be probably better to set this on e-likes, right? So every time a new like is created, and it gets up to over 100 likes from my friend, I want to get notified because I want that to be on my timeline, or I just want to get notified. Maybe there's something interesting, because it's my friend and it's going viral. I want to get notified. And this is exactly what this kind of workflow is doing. And so definitely check out BuildShip. It's an amazing, amazing tool run by amazing people. Definitely have a look. And also keep in mind that with BuildShip, you can easily share any of the workflows that you can create. You can simply click here and you're going to have a link that allows other people to clone your workflows, just like with Flutterflow, where you can easily clone apps. And so for my amazing Patreon subscribers, I'm going to be making all of this available to you guys, right? All my workflows here, all my schemas here, including, some fairly complex schemas here that do amazing, amazing things that will truly enhance your apps. And so if you're still not a member of our Patreon community, then you're greatly, greatly missing out because all the apps I create, they're available there. Plus, you can ask questions, you can connect with other members. I also have an amazing kind of weekly show where I talk about, some of the things that I was working on, get feedback from people, get suggestions for new content, right? So if you're serious about, no code, you're serious about building amazing apps, then, it's great to watch all the videos that are available on my YouTube channel, but, it's also very, very valuable to get additional content that is available for our amazing Patreon subscribers. So if all of this sounds like, something that's going to provide you with some level of value, it's going to help you in your endeavors, get you over some challenges, help you overcome some barriers, some difficulties, and I'm definitely sure of that, then you definitely owe it to yourself to check out our amazing Patreon community and become a member. And you can do just that by clicking the first link in the description below the video.